Hi everyone, my name is Jesse Heath and I am the Prescott J&K Hall Director. Today we're going to talk about time and self-management. This is a topic that I am very passionate about. It was something I struggled with as a college student. So I like to help other people figure out what's going on. If you have questions after the presentation, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is on the last slide. Other than that, we'll go ahead and get started. Before we get started, I'm going to ask that you all get into a pair or a group of three. And I'm going to ask also that you find someone that you don't interact with often. I think that this is a perfect opportunity to connect with someone new. I feel that we often rely on people that we've already made relationships with. So I'm going to ask that you go ahead and stretch yourself and talk to someone new. And I'm also going to have you grab a worksheet from your facilitator. If you don't have a journal or a notebook handy, this is a good opportunity for you to write down those different thoughts. I'm going to ask that you write down different things throughout this presentation. Typically, I'll give you about 60 seconds, but there's always time to come back once we're done too. So whatever works. Now that you all have found your groups, I'm going to go ahead and give you the first round of talking points. Number 1, how has the semester started for you? What's been easy and what's been difficult? 2, do you feel that you've had enough time for everything? And 3, has the CA role consumed more time than you expected? What task has taken most of your time? I'm going to go ahead and give you a few minutes to have these conversations and we'll jump right back into it. Let's go ahead and talk about the definitions of time management and self-management. Time management is really about organizing and planning how to divide your time between specific activities. Working smarter, not harder is something you might have heard. I think what it comes down to is really just being efficient and effective with your time. The goal here is to find the ideal balance among the things that you want to do with the things that you need to do. Self-management, in a different way, is taking responsibility for one's own behavior and well-being. So really understanding your personal responsibility in different aspects of your life and what you need to do to fulfill that responsibility. The goal with self-management is doing what needs to be done in order to be successful. So these two things are intertwined. In order to successfully manage your time, you need to take responsibility for your choices. So if you spent the afternoon hanging out with friends, that's time that you didn't have to study on an exam. And if you worked a shift, that meant that you missed out on an event on campus. So there are different things that you make time for and you make choices with, whether that is work, academics, or friends. You're making time for what is important to you by using your time intentionally, whether you realize it or not. I think this is important because how you spend your time is going to reflect what you're putting your energy into. So if you spend all of your time with friends, that means that you're not probably going to be a very good student. So you have to find a good balance between both of cultivating those relationships while also doing well in the classroom. Throughout this presentation, I have a few different prompts, activities, whatever you want to call them. This first one's called 86,400. Imagine that there's a bank account that credits your account each morning with $86,400. It carries over no balance from day to day. Every evening, the bank deletes whatever balance was that you failed to use during the day. What would you do? I think the easy choice is just drawing out everything you can. And each of us has such a bank. Its name is time. Every morning it credits you with 86,400 seconds. Every night it writes off as lost whatever of this you have failed to invest. It carries over no balance from the day before. It allows no overdrafts. Each day it opens a new account for you, and each night it burns what remains of the day. This shows the importance of your time. 86,400 seconds feels like a lot. It's not. It goes by very quickly. So you have to make the most of your time. Not saying that it isn't important to scroll through TikTok or Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is that you want to do. It's also relevant to think about how much time you're spending on those things and how it might be wasting your time. Making time for that is really important, but there needs to be a good balance. So if you don't think that time is important, to realize the value of 1 second, ask someone who narrowly avoided an accident. To realize the value of 1 minute, ask a person who just missed the bus. To realize the value of 1 week, ask the HD staff as they prepared for CA training. To realize the value of 1 month, ask a student who is working on a semester-long project. And to realize the value of 1 year, ask a student who had an extra year after failing too many classes. So if 86,400 seconds doesn't work for you, it didn't work for me. What I think is more valuable to think about is that there are 168 hours in every week. There's no way to get more time. You have what you have, and that's it. There are just choices and decisions that we have to determine ways to better use or manage the time that we have. I love Apple. Apple's awesome. I also don't like it. I've gotten these awesome notifications on Sunday that tell me how much time I've spent on my phone. Typically it's like 2.5, 3 hours each week, for average each day. And I imagine what some people say, where it's like 5 to 6 hours, where they've just been scrolling or doing different things. Sometimes people play a lot of games on their phones. But that's time that we could have spent somewhere else, where we could have been a little bit more productive, or we could have been doing things that we actually enjoy. If you wanted to watch a show on Netflix, sometimes that feels like that would be a better use of your time than just scrolling through social media. So finding the way to utilize the time that you have wisely is really important. Not saying that social media is bad, because that's not. I think that it just needs to be intentional about the time that you use. I'm going to have you go ahead and write down what are 3 things that eat up or waste your time. This will be the first writing prompt out of 3. We'll kind of come back to these. If your facilitator wants to have a conversation, they can pause the video. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and keep rolling after the prompt time is up. One thing I struggled with when it came to time management was that it really wasn't anything new. It was just really hard to grasp when I was a first year student. And I was like, I have so much free time. Where do I even start? The difference is that when you're in high school, you're busy from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Everything's blocked off. If you're involved in clubs or sports or activities, anything outside of that, typically you're going to be a lot busier. The practice of time management is really not new to you. It's the first time that you are managing your own time, but before it was dictated by others, whether it was school, clubs, organizations, family, anything like that. You did your best to squeeze your limited calendar space into those things, but really you already had commitments in different places you needed to be. It's harder in college because of the academics, both in quantity, because you have a higher volume of required readings, assignments, all of that good stuff, but then also quality. Your professors will expect a higher effort out of your academic work. So those papers you wrote in high school need to be beefed up a little bit. You have to have a little bit more effort into those in order to get to the college level. The other part of why time management is really hard in college is that you have so much autonomy. And this was kind of what I was hitting at earlier. You used to be busy from 8 a.m. or earlier until 4 o'clock p.m. or later with all sorts of classes and other commitments. With college, it's very different. You have 12 to 18 hours of classes that you have, and then outside of that, you are free. You get to decide what your work time is going to look like for that extra classwork. If you wanted to get a job, you have time to socialize with friends, and then also time to take care of yourself. So you have so much time. You have so much time to manage that it kind of feels difficult to find a place to start. We're going to talk about what that looks like in just a little bit, but I kind of wanted to address it. I think that it's important to recognize. I'm going to kick it back to your talking points groups again. First question, why do you think time management is tough to grasp? 2, what are successful strategies you've used to manage your time? And 3, have you done anything new this semester to focus on your priorities? There are a lot of different things that you can do to manage your time. I have listed 5 different strategies. We're going to talk a little bit about goal setting and to-do lists and then using a planner a little bit later. So I'm going to hit on the bottom 3 right now. I learned very early on that my room could not be a place where I studied. I would be distracted by the TV and I would just not pay attention. I would not get anything done. So I relied heavily on the library and the union to get stuff done. It's really up to you to find the space where you are going to be most effective with each task. If you can do work in your room, that's awesome. Go for it. But if you find yourself distracted like me, I'd say try to find your other space. The union is great because they have a lot of tables. The library is great because they have different study rooms and different nooks and crannies where you can kind of hang out for a little bit and get stuff done. Take advantage of waiting time. People talk about flashcards all the time. I use them a little bit. I can't say that I use them very often throughout college. I think that if you want to be successful, flashcards are awesome because when you're waiting for a professor to come to class and start the lecture, or if you're in a line, if you're waiting at the UDC, we always know what that looks like for the sub sandwich station. If you have note cards with you, it gives you time to practice and to study while you're waiting. Those 5 minutes can make a big difference when you sit down to study later that afternoon. And then learn to say no. This is something that I find difficult, and I encourage you to feel a lot more freedom with it. There are so many things that you are asked to do as a college student. And if you set those boundaries, if you're like, no, I can't add this to my plate, that is responsibly managing your time. No one should be upset about you about saying no and not adding more onto your plate. It's about you being wise with your time and figuring out what that looks like for you. I love Parks and Rec. I also love Ron Swanson. And I think his quote where it's, you need a whole ass one thing rather than half-ass 2 things, really applies here. You need to focus on what you already have on your plate rather than adding more to it. As we get further into the discussion on time management, I really enjoy this quote by Stephen Covey. Time management is really a misnomer. The challenge is not to manage time, but to manage ourselves. So it ties back into that self-management piece and really staying disciplined about how you go about scheduling your time and being effective with it. And when it does come time to study, really setting everything else aside and really focusing on what the task is at hand. Being disciplined is going to be the best way to manage your time effectively. Now I'm going to take it to future Jesse for an activity called the Jar of Life. Take it away, future Jesse. So now it's time for an activity I like to call the Jar of Life. This is a visualization of what you are doing when it comes to time management. Let's consider the jar, your weekly schedule, and the different things that are going on. We have 4 different things I want to highlight here. For the rocks, let's consider these the big commitments that you have in your life. So your connections with family and friends, succeeding at college, different things like that. We also have these bingo chips, which we typically use to cover on like our bingo cards. Today we're going to be using them for different planned things that happen during the week. So think about like exams, speeches, quizzes, anything like that that we know that are going to be coming up. This is what they're going to be used to visualize today. Next, we have a cup of salt. So these are things that we like to do, but don't typically plan them out or block them out on our schedule. So think about going to see a movie with friends, or staying in your room and playing Xbox, or other things you do just for fun when you have free time. The last thing that we have is a cup of water. And this is for emergencies, different things that pop up that we don't really plan for during the week, that we don't anticipate. So now we're going to find a way to put all of these things in this jar. There's a right way that we want to show you, and then I'm also going to show you what it looks like when we put things in our schedule and in the jar out of order than what it should be. Let's add in the big rocks. We've got class, meetings, spending time with friends. Then we have our bingo chips. Let's plan in some study time and some time to go catch a movie with friends. Now is the salt. We're going to play a game of Uno with friends and hop online to play a quick match. And then the water. Surprise shift came up at work, but that's okay. You've planned around it and prepared. This time, let's start with the bingo chips. I need to find time to study and plan out time with friends. Now is the salt. I'm going to spend a few hours scrolling through TikTok and play a few hours of Xbox. Then we add in the rocks. I'm running out of space here, so I can't fit everything. I guess I'm missing class for this week. And now is the water, but it can't all fit because it's blocked up by the salt. I guess it'll just spill into next week. So what this means is that we need to make the bigger priorities in our life, the big things that we want to accomplish, not just in a week, in a month, or a semester, but overall, we need to be putting those things first when we think about our weekly schedule. How are we making those things a priority from day to day? And then we can think about what happens when you have an exam or a quiz coming up, making sure that we're preparing for those ahead of time rather than just cramming and studying the night before. We can make time for that if we're intentional about what we're doing. And then, not to say that Xbox or movies with your friends aren't important, but we can find a little bit more of that time a lot more easy once we figure out where our rocks are going and what we need to do to study and prepare for everything else. So that's a little bit more easy to move around. And then the water, hopefully you don't have any. Hopefully you don't have a lot of emergencies that pop up, but when things happen, you are ready for them, and it's the most easy thing to fit into your schedule. It's a little bit more liquid. So the jar is a representation for your life. Different things to think about as you intentionally plan out your schedule and get yourself organized as you plan out what the next semester is going to look like. How will you manage your time jar? This is representative of your life. You know, you have to find a way to fit in all of the big rocks and fit in everything else as well. It's up to you to figure out what this is going to look like for you, but hopefully this is a helpful visualization about what it means to prioritize and put the bigger things first and then let everything else fill in. Thanks, future Jesse. I have taken time to write a few takeaways from that activity. The first one is make time for the things that matter. And then the second is we need to be intentional about where we are spending our time. Both of the things I've been nailing on the head this entire presentation. So different things to think about. I'm going to have you go ahead and write down what is something you want to make time for in the next 2 weeks. It's going to come back into the conversation in a little bit. So take some time to write a few things down and then we'll go ahead and jump back into it. Now we're going to get into the details about scheduling your time. I have 3 different categories marked out: long-term, short-term, and daily planning. Long-term is really about planning your semester, thinking about what it looks like at the starting point versus at the end. Short-term is more planning week by week, and then daily, you guessed it, is planning by day. Long-term planning, I think that the best way to do this is with a planner. So writing down deadlines or exam dates, things that you know from the syllabus at the very beginning of the semester. I also think it's a perfect place to see your goals. So whether you have different academic goals, health goals, or personal goals, It's a perfect place to have it at the beginning of your planner, and you can see it very frequently. If you haven't made time to log all of your exams, quizzes, papers, and projects from your syllabi, do it now. We're a few weeks in. It's important to be aware of that. You don't want any surprises. That's not a good way to be a student. That's a stressful way to be a student. So make sure that you are writing those things down and being aware of those deadlines. And then you also want to mark out other big dates or commitments that you know far ahead of time. So if you have a camping trip coming up, or you have a concert that you have bought tickets for, make sure to mark that down in your planner so that you can ask that time off of work, plan around that when it comes to homework time, all that good stuff. You want to make sure that that stuff is blocked off so that you're prepared. We have short-term planning, and I think that the best method for this is with a planner. So blocking off everything that you have throughout the week, whether it be meetings, classes, anything like that, and that will help you stay focused on what's going to be coming up throughout the week. What I have liked to do, both as a student and now as a staff member, is setting my intentions for what the week is going to look like on Sunday. Each Sunday I take 15 to 30 minutes, I sit down with my schedule and figure out what my week is going to look like and put together a to-do list about things that I want to accomplish within the next week, or just get started. Short-term planning is really where your big rocks come into play. You block off the big things that are going to be taking up time, like classes, meetings, different things like that. It's a good way to start out your week, figuring out what needs to be accomplished and what you're going to be doing when you have study time and what that's going to be looking like, so that you have a little bit more structure. I really like this quote from Abraham Lincoln. If I only had an hour to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 45 minutes sharpening my axe. As we think about what intention setting looks like on Sunday, that's really what it's all about. You're spending a few minutes to sharpen your axe, figuring out what your to-do list looks like, what you need to get accomplished before it actually comes time to get it done, so that there is structure when you do have the study or work time planned out throughout the week. And then we have daily planning. And the best method is, you guessed it, a planner. I feel that this is an ideal place to house your to-do list. What I have typically done is written it on a blank piece of paper and then just put it right in the planner. If you want to have its own column inside your planner, that works too. Whatever fits for you. The thing is that this planner is a way that you can stay consistent and have everything in one place. Whether it is a physical planner, you go out to Walmart or Target and buy one, or it can be an online platform too. Calendar in Outlook works really well. If you're a big fan of Google Calendar, that is also a really good option too. When it comes to daily planning, writing down a list of things that you want to accomplish each day is going to be important. And when you set your intentions on Sunday, it can be divided up into what it looks like day by day, or it can just be a giant list and you sit down on Monday, you're like, I'm going to tackle this, and then Tuesday I'm going to tackle this one, and you just pick and choose what it is that you're going to go after each day. It doesn't matter, it's really what is best for you. I like having it a little bit more compartmentalized, so I do it day by day. Take it into our third and final talking points. Questions now: what is realistic for you with each of these? Can you see yourself implementing these into your routine? Number 2, what do you already do? What are ways that you can be more effective? And 3, what are commitments you can say no to? What boundaries can you set that will help you be more effective? I'll have you go ahead and get with your partners or your small groups. We'll bring it back in just a little bit. All right, folks, hang in there. We're at the very end of this. It's been a long time. We're gonna finish strong. So the next thing I want to talk about is scheduling time for you. Throughout this presentation, I don't want you to think that you need to be effective for 24 hours a day. That's BS, and it's not realistic. You need to make time for yourself in order to be successful. There are 6 different things I name on this slide. Making time for sleep and rest. The people who say that they're getting by on 5 hours of sleep consistently, that's not right. Get the amount of sleep that you need in order to be successful. Do not rely on coffee or energy drinks. I love energy drinks. I don't think that that's a good way to get by. If you are using that instead of getting sleep, you're not going to have a good time and it will catch up with you. Eat a healthy diet. You can eat what you want. That's fine. That's not what I'm getting at. I think people feel better when they eat a balanced diet. What I'm speaking about with this point is just making time to eat. When you're actually scheduling things out, you will plan in different times for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks if you want to do that. That's totally fine. I've talked to too many college students who have been like, I haven't eaten today. And I'm like, it is 8 p.m. at night. That's not right. People need to eat in order to fuel their bodies and in order to do well. So make time to eat. And if you want to eat a healthy diet, go for it. Staying in touch with family, it's going to be different for each person. If this is a value for you, I think it is important to block out different time. Doesn't need to be every day. Doesn't need to be every week. Exercise each day. Doesn't need to be a hardcore cardio heavy workout. It can just be going on a walk with your friends. I think getting fresh air is really important, and just getting up and moving around is going to be helpful at keeping your mind fresh. Cultivating friendships is one of the most important things about college life. So connect with people on your floor, in your classes, in different organizations you get involved with. Those one-on-one connections are really important. And it ties into connecting with community. So figuring out where your identity is on a larger scale. Individual relationships are important, but I also think it's important to get involved in your residential community, in student organizations, or other bigger communities within Mankato. So I'm going to have you do one last writing prompt, and this will come back up too. What are 3 things you need to do to take care of yourself this week? I'll go ahead and give you 60 seconds, and then we'll go ahead and jump into the last slide. All right, my last point is don't celebrate being busy. It's really easy to get caught up in how busy you are. When you look at your schedule and you're like, man, I'm booked from like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and I have something going on all of the time. I think it's easy to get caught up in what you're doing when you aren't actually tracking it. With this, keeping a planner is really helpful. It helps you stay accountable for where you're actually spending your time and what you're actually doing. An example is when you are doing laundry. I hate it. I really don't like doing laundry. I used to think of it being like a full 2-hour gig where it was like 1 hour in the washer, 1 hour in the dryer. And that's not true. It takes 5 minutes to put it in the washer, maybe. It takes 5 minutes to move it from the washer to the dryer. It takes 5 minutes to pull them out of the dryer, and it takes longer to fold your clothes. I'm not even going to go there. But it's not 2 hours. It's really like 15 minutes and then probably another 15 minutes of folding after that. But that still leaves you another hour and a half where you can be doing other things while you are doing laundry. So don't let that hour and a half go to waste. Don't just spend it on your phone or just literally sitting and doing nothing. The other point I want to say is that boundaries and efficiency help you make the most of your time. Where you spend your time is what is going to be important in your life. And it's whether you are realizing it or not. If you spend hours scrolling through your phone and neglecting your friends and not focusing on your homework, it's going to be tough to climb back out of that. So be intentional about where you're spending your time and make the most of it, really, because you only have a limited amount of time. Once you're done with your college experience, things are going to look so much different. So make the most of it. Don't just live your life waiting for things to happen. Go out and find it. Make time for it. Plan it out in your planner. All right. As I promised, I'm done talking at you. We've talked about a lot of different things, and I think that now it comes down to the activity portion where you're actually going to plan out your week. So we have 168 hours. I'm going to have you go ahead and organize your schedule from Sunday to Saturday. Your facilitator is going to have a worksheet for you to put together your schedule from midnight on Sunday to midnight on Saturday. So take time blocking off what an average week looks like for you. I know a lot of things change throughout the semester, but just try to do an average week about what it's going to look like for you. And as you make plans throughout the rest of the semester, keep this in mind. Take this and take it back with you and put it into your journal, your planner, whatever you need to do, and try to stick to this. What you're going to do is take the completed version to your supervisor during your next one-on-one and review it together. So I'm going to go ahead and give you some time to wrap up your 168-hour worksheet, and then we'll go ahead and wrap things up. All right, so I lied. I'm going to talk at you for 30 more seconds and we're going to go over the key takeaways. 1, time management is a learned skill. You have to practice to learn it and to improve at it. 2, utilize a weekly planner and a semester calendar. Stick to your schedule. And 3, keep a daily to-do list. It's going to help you stay focused throughout the week. So if you do these 3 things, it's going to help you become a more effective and intentional student. All right, wrapping this up, thank you so much for paying attention and staying engaged throughout this presentation. I know it's been a long one. If you do have any questions or if you want to reach out, my contact information is on this slide. Again, thank you so much for hanging out with me. We'll see you later.